Welcome to the project section of W1RCP. This is the J-38 key. This was a gift from Frank K9TIE long before I started doing Morse code. So I want to shine this bad boy up and let's see what it takes to get it done. I started with some Eagle 1 Never Dull and some odorless spirits and some 400 grit sandpaper, and I sanded some things and I polished other things, and then I polished everything to bring it to a somewhat of a nice glow and shine. This is just a simulation of what it looked like because I didn't actually spend any time recording it. I took each of the pieces and pinned them to a cardboard box so I could spray the enamel, and I put 3 coats on each of these pieces. Then I let that urethane dry, and after it dried, then I had to figure out how to put it back together. Nasty. How am I going to put this back together? I don't know, man. Well, I finally figured out how to put it back together. Took me a minute and I had to search the web to look at some pictures, but there's a few washers I had to get there. So now let's test this thing out. I think it's working. Now we're home, and I started this project when I was at my father-in-law's house in Tennessee, and you can see that this key turned out quite nicely. It has been a couple of weeks and I'm seeing a little bit of corrosion right here where I guess the enamel didn't quite get in there, but the rest of it looks pretty good. And I put enamel on here and on the other side of this contact so that when this accidentally touches, it won't make contact. Now, if you slide it back and forth a bunch, yeah, it's gonna eventually rub the enamel off. But one time I hooked the key up to my little Pixie rig and it was on and no antenna was connected, and it killed it because I had walked away. I didn't have an antenna, the high SWR. You'd think, you know, quarter, half watt wouldn't burn. Oh, it burned up. So I'm using these washers to kind of hold the wires instead of wrapping the wires around. You can see where I've already tried to solder using flux core solder, but these will not take it. I don't know where my flux pen is. I could probably get some solder to stick to them, but what I'm gonna do is just solder the wire around it. I'm not worried about it actually making contact with this because the set screw that goes on top of it should make contact with a wire enough that it should work. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna do. I burnt the heck out of that one. I'm gonna clean the tip of this and re-tin it. There we go. And all I'm gonna do is solder the wire that's around it. I'm not gonna actually put solder on the washer because I know that it's not gonna accept what I get. I went ahead and I cut off the white wire because the white wire is not used. The white wire is the ring. I just have it to the tip. Let's see, TRS, and the sleeve of the stereo connector. And I soldered this up while I was in Tennessee. A lot of this video was just pictures because I didn't have my GoPro with me and it was too noisy in the house, but you can see the ring, tip ring sleeve is not connected because it's a straight key. And you could, some of them will accept it, some radios will, but I have a radio that doesn't like it, the Shigu X6100. It freaks out. So I chose not to have that connected for my particular kit. And now what we're gonna do, and it doesn't matter, this is a straight key, so it doesn't matter what contact takes what. Oh, we almost forgot. Let's turn the soldering iron off. I did bring a piece of heat shrink to put on here for this part. So I'm gonna put some heat shrink And we're gonna fire up the heat shrinker gun. Get ready for some noise. And we're gonna just ever so slightly put some pressure. And we're gonna heat shrink it without burning our finger. Look at there. Look how pretty that looks. All right, there we go. I'll take that. I'm not gonna let it do its cool off. I'm just gonna turn it off because I don't even think it got hot enough. And now we're gonna take that washer and slide it on there. Now notice, it's not, I mean, yeah, there's probably continuity because the wire is touching that washer. But, let me flip this to the other side, the clean side. Once I put that wire on there, that's really on there. Oh, snap. I can't get it to come off. We're gonna have to spudge it with this. Okay, we spudged it. I'm gonna put the shiny side of the washer up, even though it's got some flux stuck to it. We're gonna push that back down on there. Now we're gonna take our screws, or really the cap. We're gonna screw that down on there. The other thing that these should do is keep these from spinning. You know, if you just wrap the wire around it, once you cinch it down, it tends to spin. It would have been nice if I had some brass washers to make it a little bit neater looking, but I think this is neater than I had it before when I was in Tennessee and taking pictures of it. But I had to test it out, so I had to clutch it together. And now that those are tightened, a little bit of solder, we'll put that in the garbage so the pets don't get a hold of it. So now, there we go, look at that. I think this thing turned out fantastic. You've got different colors. This I think is steel, so it's got kind of a neat look where I sanded it a little bit harder in some places. I really like that. The Western Electric handle is really shiny. This is a little more dull. These are even more dull looking. And then this guy is almost silver looking. I think it's the same material. I'm not really sure. If I had a magnet, I could definitely hold it to it and find out what was steel and what was brass. But this is just a Hobby Lobby. It's from the Wood Pile. That's the name brand of it. And it was just the plain wood. I drilled some holes where I was going to mount it, and there's 3 mounting holes. I had thought about bringing the wire and drilling a hole this way and bringing it up through here and then doing that, but then I was like, well, I don't want to mess up the pretty finish on this thing. This is just the darkest finish that they had at the house. I didn't buy any varnish, so I rubbed it down. You can see I didn't do the bottom. I just left it kind of where the stuff soaked in. And then from the top, I sprayed about 2 or 3 layers of enamel on this, just to keep it, you know, if it does get something dropped on it. I tend to have drinks around the radio, so sometimes a little water gets dropped. But I have it set up and I think it's gonna work. This is way better than I had it before. And I think it looks good. I've just seen some people on the internet have finished their keys, and I wanted to have a nice looking straight key. Now I have a nice looking straight key. I got the G0 NVT. It's a PB213, Papa Bravo 213 copy, but it was made by, I want to say his name's Phil Boyle. I always forget his name because, you know, it's been years since I bought it, but this is really nice and it's finished. This is a complete project of sanding, and let's see, I sanded it and then I sanded it and then I sanded it because it did have some kind of finish on it, and I had to get that enamel off. When they enameled it, whoever had this before me, a friend, K9TIE Frank, he bought it for me from a ham fest for real cheap, and sent it to me in the mail. I have used it multiple times. I've carried it in my pocket places and then just threw 2 wires on. So it's ready to go. It looks really nice. I sanded it and with like 120, and then I sanded it with 220, and then I went to 400, and that's when I stopped. I was like really tired of sanding. I used a file to kind of file some of the inside and used some chemicals here and there to kind of strip it, and then I polished it with some very caustic polish, and I had that at the beginning, and then I cleaned it up really nicely, hence washed it with soap and water. I degreased it. Then I put the enamel on here, and I'm really proud of this guy. So it's definitely a key you can display in your shack. If you can find these telegraph keys, the AT&T Co. or any J-38, if you want to spend some time and make one look a little bit different than just the rustic look. The hardest part is just remembering where all these insulating washers go. There's a ton of them on this thing. There's some on the top, there's some on the bottom, and there's some under here, and there's some under that. There's quite a few insulating pieces to this, but the only thing you want to be careful, do not get anything on the contacts, anything that makes contact with something else. So all of this has been enameled on the top, but as you saw maybe when I flipped this over earlier, I did not put enamel on those parts where they make contact. And that was so that it actually has continuity. Alrighty, this is W1RCP. We do projects, and I'm trying to get better. The next one that I'm going to be doing is going to be a paddle kit, and that one will come out in a couple more weeks, maybe a month, because I try to release videos every 2 weeks to give folks time to digest one and find their favorite parts of it and then move on, and, you know, look for Easter eggs if you want to look for Easter eggs in my videos. This one doesn't have any that I know of yet. So I'm going to have another key that I'm going to make. It's going to be some 3D printed paddles, and I'll give you kind of a hint while we're here. I have it in the bag right here, and let's just pull these parts out. So when I 3D print them, this is what they look like when they come out. I have to clean up the edges, peel off all the support material, kind of clean some of the edges up in the middle. I haven't quite perfected printing with PETG yet, and the supports turned out looking real janky. Those are real fun to get out, and these supports disappeared and probably became part of the inside. Same with this, but this is going to be the next project, is making a 3D printed key. And let me just preface this: don't buy cheap screws in those 1,000 kits off of Amazon or eBay. You can just know that it is going to be an absolute pain. The threads suck, the metal's soft. Buy Phillips. Don't buy the freaking hex key kind, because those hex keys strip instantly with any pressure. All right, so again, W1RCP, we do projects here. And now that the counter's clean, I can actually have a decent workspace. Yay, it's Declutter January. Happy New Year. Well, daggone! As soon as I finished that video, the wires broke. So, back to janky.